All right, and we're here for a special episode of Creators Talking, and I call it a guest of honor because, well, that's exactly who I have with me today. I have with me a man who's been in the comic business a long time, and who, along with his wife, my local comic shop guy, is described as comic book royalty. Side note, hi Jeff. If you've picked up a comic or have read comics as long as I have, you've picked up one with his name on it sooner or later. He has been behind Ghost Rider, because I worked on him, Ghost Rider, Punisher, the Marvel 2029 line, Ash, Painkiller Jane, 22 Brides, Kid Death and Fluffy. He was one of the people behind the Marvel Knights relaunch, which was a big event for me. And of course, also worked on Harley Quinn and part of Power Girl with his wife, the amazing artist Amanda Connor. I am thrilled beyond belief to have with me today a man whose work we're going to talk about later on with crowdfunding as well with his latest project, Mr. Jimmy Palmiotti.
How you doing, guys? Hey, Justin, how are you, buddy?
I am, like I said, I'm beyond thrilled to have you here today because, as I said, I've been reading comics for so long, and uh, come across your work quite often, especially, of course, the early stuff you did with Joe Quesada. Am I saying his name right?
Casada, yeah,
Quesada,
Casada. You're,
right?
you're
Yeah.
you're in the ballpark. That's good.
But I always like to start these things at the beginning. So,
Okay.
who was Jimmy before he became involved in comics?
Well, so at a very young age, growing up in Brooklyn, comics were everywhere around me.
Mm,
We're talking about late '60s, early '70s. Like, I'm a little older, and we didn't have like a million cable channels. We didn't have VHS tapes. We didn't have any of that. And we only had one TV in the house. So if my dad was watching football or something, we would go and go outside and sit on the stoop and we'd read comics. We had comic books. They sold them at the candy store in the corner. When I got a haircut, the hair cutting place had stacks of them. And so I've always, and again, four boys, where I grew up with three brothers. So we each had our own little, we had a very quiet times. We'd read comics and we'd trade comics. And I had kids in my neighborhood who also read comics. So they would come over and we weren't collecting them. Like we were just swapping them and reading. We made sure we read everybody's comics. Like that was our
mm,
thing. Like I had a buddy of mine, Raymond, that would buy like Daredevil and Iron Man, and he had his favorites. I had a lot of Superman and horror comics and everything. And we'd swipe. We just like to say, here, you read this one. This is a good one, or we have deep conversations about the Hulk and the Thing and who could beat each other. So I grew up with having them all around, and a steady diet of Saturday evening horror movies on TV, and I loved westerns. Was a big part of my life. I loved westerns because I grew up in a
mm.
in a very cement. Grew up in Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn, New York. It was the idea of the open west and open plains was so abstract because I lived in a place where there was literally my brothers were in the same room, my
Yeah.
aunt and uncle lived upstairs, like there were people everywhere. So to read about comics that happened, stories that happened in the west where there was only one person on a mountain, it was like, oh, imagine that, like how quiet that must be.
Oh God, yeah.
um but I loved all the genres. And when I went to Catholic school for 8 years, and I would draw, and I would look at the comics and I would try to copy them. And then when I got into ninth grade, I was in a local high school, and one morning I came in, and they sent me the teacher said you have to go to the principal office right now. I figured I did something, or they caught me doing something. I don't know what happened.
Mm,
But I went in, and they said, listen, the teachers got together. They gave me some money and some subway tokens, and they said, we set you up. You're going to take a test in Manhattan,
yeah.
and you're going to go to the High School of Art and Design and take a test to see. We think you're wasting your time in this school. So the teachers got together and they gave me a couple of bucks and sent me to take a test to get into an art school, and I got in. And
Brilliant.
and that's where I went for the next 3 years. Great teachers, right? I mean, imagine that. We think yeah, I can't say enough about teachers in general, anyway.
Mm.
But So I went to the High School of Art and Design, and I had buddies. My close friend there was Mark Texera, who
Ah,
was
yes.
who even back then was such an amazing artist.
Yeah,
Like I
I've always
really,
loved his work on Ghost Rider.
oh yeah, just he's a powerful artist. Like it's almost like the page can't hold his crazy lines. Like
Hmm.
he's all power. Um, and then and as I got into 11th and 12th grade, I ghosted for some artists and I ghosted for some inkers, and I realized that it pays nothing. And my family grew up poor. We were not well off. So my dad and I had the conversation that there's no money to be made here. So I went to a city college. Well, I couldn't afford an art college, um, but I applied with TAP and BEOG, which these were programs that if you had no money,
Hmm.
um, you can get government assist for school, but I had to keep an insanely high grade average in
Yeah.
order to keep getting it. And I did. For 2 years, I graduated on the dean's list and I got into advertising.
Hmm.
And I did that for a little over 8.5 years. I worked in a couple of companies. One of the bigger ones was Rivera and Schiff, it was called. And it was, we had Maybelline and Pepsi were some of our clients. The other client we had was Malpaso, which was Clint Eastwood's company. And
Oh, really?
yeah, and I got to design a bunch of movie posters over those 8 years with a guy named Bill Gold, very famous guy. I got to work on all these movie posters. That was my favorite part of the job, obviously. Um, and then eventually, I did well in the advertising, but I wanted to get back to comics, and I thought maybe with all the training I had, maybe I could figure out how to way to make money
Hmm.
doing it. And it just so happened I hooked up with my high school buddy, Mark Texera, who at the time, this was like 1990, right? At the time, he was penciling and inking Punisher, and he was inking Ghost Rider and plus other. He needed help really badly, and
Hmm.
to hit his deadlines. And he got in contact with me, and I went up to Marvel because we sat in the bullpen and we worked at night. And while I was helping Mark getting the books out, I started giving my samples to all the artists, all the editors in the bullpen, and eventually I started picking up some drawing work I did, and then eventually a ton of inking work because I was very quick and I never missed a deadline, which is like the editor's dream is to have the guy that
Yes.
never
Yeah.
misses a
Yeah. Yeah.
deadline. And so I started getting up my own work, and I've been pretty much working ever since.
So, you discussed obviously loving westerns and stuff like that, but were there
Yeah,
any sort of really solid influences you had that stand out to this day? Because my dad, for example, he loved his westerns growing up, and
yeah,
he's passed that on to me, and he was a big Eastwood fan,
yes.
and
Love
like
Clint. I mean,
yeah,
Outlaw Josie Wales was
oh
Jonah
god, yeah,
Hex.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean that was the closest thing. I loved Clint Eastwood. I also liked the John Wayne stuff. I liked anything I saw on TV that was a western. And right, it's funny because years later I get to write Jonah Hex, and I visited a ranch. I took local horseback riding. I figured if I'm going to write this book, I have to know what it's like, kind of thing. So
Mm,
I did a lot of that stuff, and Amanda and I did a little traveling and investigating and stuff like that. It's always been fascinating to me. I don't know if I'm probably not a good cowboy. Amanda's probably a better cowboy because the horses love her. But I fear them. I know they can kill me, and they kind of know that I know. Like we talk to each other. I'm like I know that you can kill me, so I'm
mm,
careful on them. But I always like the genre. I just find it easy to write. I mean, right now I'm still writing Western. I'm still writing. I'm for Todd McFarlane. I write the Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger.
yes,
It
yeah.
is a hardcore Western with some Spawn stuff in there. Some of the
Mm,
more bigger than life stuff. But I'm still writing it as a really grounded Western, and I do love the genre because it's the idea of exploration, right? Of going
yeah.
somewhere where nobody else has gone. The world is big and open. It's not corrupted in every corner, and the idea that people are just trying to find a new life for themselves. There's so many interesting parts of the genre that I find make for some great storytelling. You
Well,
know?
it's also a world without technology, isn't it? Because obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, cowboys didn't have one of these damn things.
No.
So
No. Thank God.
I suppose that makes it much more attractive because there's no cell phones going off, there's no
Oh, I
social
mean,
media.
I mean, if you do, if it's funny because I'm writing this, it's a Daredevil Punisher book, and it happens in 1999, right? So it's
Hmm.
right before 9/11. It's right before, and there are still cell phones and computers, but they're not like they are now.
No.
And it's funny because when you have to write the past, one of my first things I have to look up is, were cell phones a common thing in this year? You know, because I remember my first one was just like a little flip thing where I could just
Yeah.
call home. That's all it had. It was just a phone. And then technology moves at speeds that we can't even
Oh
figure
God,
out.
yeah. I
I
always
mean,
remember my
yeah,
first phone was a Motorola about this big,
yeah.
and
You had a little
I
flip one. Was it like a
no, it
open
was
it
just
or
it
was
was
it
like a
just
solid
oh
unit, and
oh yeah.
I often refer to it as the Motorola brick because that's what it kind of felt like to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, it makes the world. It does this to your brain. It's like, remember when before phones we had, like, if I told my friend I'll meet you at 11
Yeah,
at a place, you had to be there, right?
yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, you
yeah.
had a quarter to put in the phone. Is, hey, call the house. Different world. I don't know that it's a better world. Like I said, I think the information is too accessible, and
Hmm.
of course, we, at least here in, our current government, is spending a lot of time making us that we don't believe anything anymore.
Oh
And
God,
AI is not helping, right?
it's similar over here. I can assure you.
Yeah, so we're in a world where we don't really respect the people in charge.
No.
We think they're conning us, or I think they're just trying to make money. I think it's a very greed-oriented world right now.
Hmm.
Um, but I also, the flip side of that is when I'm down and with my neighbors and we're out, none of that's there.
No.
It's like I say, the technology, the news, and all that stuff. I think sometimes it's better to just turn it off,
Yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely.
people in the real world, it's like people say, "Here's what's going on in the world," and I always want to walk to my local restaurant, take a picture of everybody eating and having a good time, and
Yeah.
I'm going, "Well, that's also happening right now,"
Hmm.
but nobody's reporting on it. You
No.
know.
I always remember the biggest sort of shock I got about how quick technology was moving was it was after the first Michael Bay Transformers had come out,
Mm.
and we only had one child then, I think, and he was running around pretending to be a transformer as I had done growing up, and I remember saying to him, "You should see the Transformers the movie we had when I was a kid,"
Right.
and he went, show it to me," and I put it on. And at the beginning, obviously, Laserbeak has spied on the Autobots, and he flies back, and Soundwave transforms to play back the recording. And he looks at me and goes, "Daddy, what did he just turn into?" And I went, "It's a cassette player, mate." And he paused and went, "What's a cassette player?" And I just
Right.
sat there and went, "Oh God."
Yeah. I mean,
And I'm a child of the '80s, and I just sat there and thought, "Oh, someone take me back to the '80s and leave me
but
there,
but isn't
please."
it but isn't it interesting that now, because of all the digital media, people are starting to buy records and they're starting to buy a physical media again,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and and I
I
think it's
still buy Blu-rays and DVDs now because the problem you've got with streaming services is that half the time the film will just get boop, taken off it, and there's no little or no notice as to why.
or you download all your music and your DVDs or whatever you do, and then
Mm.
your computer dies and your external hard drive only saves certain ones, and
Yes.
like this. So it's interesting. Like I said, there's pushback in that way. I do like technology because I do want them to create that painless needle, and the thing I could just walk in and be scanned and they tell me these things are wrong with you. I like medical technology a lot because
Yeah.
I think we need to push harder on that stuff. Um, and I have the fantastic brain, I want to know what's out there in space. I want to know what's inner space. That's
Hmm.
my current Kickstarter, right? That's inner space. What's down there
Oh
that's
yeah.
right there that we ignore. We're going to Mars, but we haven't even been to
Oh
the
God, yeah.
bottom of the ocean yet, to parts of the
Mm.
ocean. So
So
crazy.
before we sort of get on to what work you've done in comics, there's one question I've really wanted to ask you since I
Sure.
knew you were coming on. So I've spoken in the past with writers and I've spoken with artists, but I've never spoken to someone who's primarily focused on inking. And I just
Right.
thought you talked to me briefly about the craft a bit because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that unlike that famous line in Chasing Amy, you're not really just tracing over work, are you?
No, and even made it worse that I was in the film, so that even makes it worse.
Oh,
Um,
I knew Joe Quesada was in the film. I didn't realize you was in it. Where was
yeah,
you in
Joe
it?
and I are sitting right next to each other in
Oh, I
that
didn't
movie.
know that.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah, that's okay. And so inking, I honestly, I never set out to be an inker. Like I was just drawing, and Tex needed some help, and I was helping him ink. But I caught on really quick, and what I learned about inking was basically I'm just supposed to make the penciler happy with what I do. That's my main job, right? Because the editors don't really know what they're looking at. Most of them, they just it
Hmm.
looks done, they're happy. But my thing was make if I make the penciler happy, they're gonna keep asking for me.
Okay.
And so I would work really hard to have the pencil around or get their feedback on what I'm doing.
Mm.
I looked at guys like Al Williamson. I actually went to Al Williamson's house. Frank Frazetta, I went to his place,
Oh
and we
wow.
talked about, he showed me how to ink hair, and Al showed me what pens to use, and Bernie Wrightson spent some time with me. And I just tried to get as much as I could from all the people I idolized, Neil
Hmm.
Adams, all them. I figured, all right, if I have the list of tools and I look at how they're working and I can kind of figure it out. And it took a little while, but I did. I'm never going to be known like those guys are. Those guys are amazing. I was just
Oh, I think you'll be known.
I did the job, but those guys were like,
Mm.
superstars to me. They still are superstars. Um, but it was basically my job was to make the artwork. To bring out what the penciler did. Try to separate the planes, middle ground, foreground, background. Bring clarity to things, and then a little technique. Push and pull. Like if you look at, and I know you're familiar with it. You look at the way I ink Joe Quesada.
Hmm.
I inked him differently than everybody he's ever had after him.
Mm.
When I inked Joe, I tried to go for a 3D effect. I like Daredevil's like right here, and the buildings are all the way in the back. And I did this kind of push and pull with the line weights, and it worked very well with Joe. Like it was a good
Mm.
combination. And I'd look at guys like Rick Leonardi who would almost sketch their work, and I had to pick out the prime image that he was going for. Um, and even like I think Bernie Wrightson on a gig where Bernie didn't put the shadows on the figures; he just drew the outlines. And if there's one thing you know about Bernie, it's all about the shadows. So it was
Mm.
very intimidating. But I figured out, all right, that's what he's trying to do. And
Hmm.
again, my job was to interpret what the pencil did, what's the best way I could make it look amazing.
Yeah.
And again, another one of my idols was Kevin Nolan. So I would look how he would do, textures, and God, Joe Sinnott on Jack Kirby. Steel would feel like steel, wood would feel like wood, water would feel like water. These were done with different kind of brushes and pens.
Hmm.
So it's a skill you have to develop. I did it for oh my God, from 91 to around 2008.
Hmm.
And then I was like, but I wanted to write full time, so I said, "Don't give me any more ink to do." And every once in a while, I'll ink somebody's cover or something, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I won't. It was like comics pays terribly, so there's certain jobs that are work heavy that pay even less.
Well,
Um,
that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because obviously the early days at Marvel, it was Ghost Rider, there was Punisher, the
yeah,
Nam,
yeah,
and of course the Marvel 2020, sorry,
29, yeah,
2099, 2099.
2099, yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
2099.
I can talk. Um, was there a lot of long hours involved in that?
Yeah, so I mean, so I'm one of those inkers that if the drawing needed some work, they'd give it to me to fix to alter the pencil. I won't say fix. Sometimes it was fixed. Sometimes it was just, hey, can you make this a little clearer and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, I averaged around 3 books a month, and
So
that
what?
means it
So
over
what would
60 something
your
pages.
so what would
You know,
your hours in a typical day be? What time would you start? What time would you
it'd be
finish?
like 9 a.m. till around 10 at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'd have a break for meals. But I would work through. Sometimes I had deadlines. I had to work through the night. I'd have like Mountain Dew and just kind of keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I didn't during those years. I didn't get the vacation very much, and I didn't get to do things. It was a very stressful time because my mom was sick a lot, so I had to
Mm.
pay her bills. So there was a lot going on. But also I'm a comic fan, so
Yeah.
every once in a while all of a sudden they'd I'm busy as hell, but then they'd call me in and say, listen, we have this super soldier comic that Dave Gibbons did breakdowns, you want to ink that? And I was like, oh my God, Dave Gibbons.
Yeah,
Yes, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
And I take it and realize I still have two other books to do. um, things would come along. Hey, you want to ink some Paul Chadwick? Oh my God, yes, yes, I do. And you know, Paul Galassi was another one. Like, oh, Paul's looking for an inker. I'm like, oh my God, I would, yes. I grew up
Mm.
with Master Kung Fu. I want to work on that. You know, um, so I had a lot of that, and I got very lucky. I mean, I put in the hard work, but I also managed to. I made sure I talked to my artists and create relationships with them, so
Yes.
we can go back and forth and go discuss the work freely, without egos involved. And I got a lot of work. I mean, there was a time I honestly, I would have to start saying no to things, and I did. I started saying,
Mm.
well, I can't do that, or don't give me a team book, please, with
Mm.
85 characters. I'm like, crazy.
So with that then, so how did event comics come around?
Well, we were watching the guys from Image Comics back then.
Oh yes,
Todd
yeah.
and Jim and all those guys. And Joe Quesada and I were too stupid to realize what we were doing, and we just said, "Hey, we can form our own company, Event Comics, and we'll put out our own characters." And that's literally, we took 60 grand and put it into an account to create a company, and
Mm.
then we got to work with Painkiller Jane and Ash, and you know, we hired a girl, Lori Braddock, to work with us on the books and all the stuff like that. But it really was a three-person company. It's amazing we got the books out that we did,
Mm.
for
I've
for
got
the
a few of them
timing.
here.
Yeah, yeah, we I
Yeah.
yeah, they're ancient now.
Oh, I always love finding them when because I love just going to comic shops and if it's not my own and seeing what I can get.
Yeah.
My local comic shop guy again, hi Jeff. He does
Hey, Jeff.
uh, streams on Whatnot to obviously help sell his
Oh,
stuff.
okay, yeah, yeah.
And one I've got from him is this copy of Ash and 22 Brides. That
Oh, yeah, yeah. That
yeah,
was
that
Oh, so I'll tell you a funny story with that book. That book was Umberto Ramos drew it, and I
yes,
inked
it
it,
was. Yeah.
and then I put it in a FedEx box to send it to the printer,
Mm-hmm.
and it never got there.
Oh,
The entire book was lost,
how?
and thank God I had a set of really small Xeroxes, and I had to re-ink the whole book from Xeroxes.
Oof.
There's nothing worse than finishing a book and then going back and redoing it.
That's got to be
And
horrible.
it wasn't easy. It was like very complicated pages, and
Mm.
but those were done on Xerox. That's what I remember about that book, because they never found the package. By the way, the pages never showed up again.
Oh, God, well, obviously I'm bald now, but I'd be pulling my hair out at the
Oh no,
time.
I literally I walked into a FedEx place with it, right? And then I told them, "Can you go back to the video and see?" And they're like, "Yeah, we see you giving the." I'm like, "Well, where is the package? I handed it to you." Like, we don't have any account of it. They just never found it. That's why I hated FedEx at the time. Um, but anyway, we were doing these books. They weren't selling tons, but we were. It was our thing, we were doing
Mm-hmm.
them, and we had an audience. And at the same time, we were trying to, do work with Wizard to promote, and
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
we used to. So unlike most creators, we would drive up to Wizard magazine, and we would take the editorial crew to lunch, and we talk about the things we were doing. And then
Mm.
Garib would come, and Garib would say, "Hey, you want to do a cover for the magazine?" Back then, when you did the cover, he wanted to keep the original.
Mm-hmm.
Smart guy. And yeah, so we got a lot of press, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, Ash.
Yeah.
What
Well,
happened with
this one I
Ash
should
was,
point out. It's signed by yourself and Joe, which is
there you
one of
go,
my
there you
one
go.
of my collectibles.
It's from the 90s, mid
Yeah.
90s. Yeah, those are Fire Within us. Yeah, I was just looking at them because I have the original art.
Oh wow.
We still have. Joe and I never sold a page of the art we did.
Okay.
We both have everything, so one day
Mm-hmm.
we'll scan it and we'll reprint it or something. But we were just trying to do our own thing, and we got very distracted at one point because DreamWorks flew us out for Ash to do a deal on Ash.
Oh wow.
DreamWorks owns the rights to the Ash property for film and TV.
Oh
They own it. They've never done anything with it, but they paid a lot of money for it. And then with Painkiller Jane, we had a TV movie, then we had a show,
yeah.
and I actually would go up to Vancouver, and on the sidelines, hang out, and I worked with the writers and stuff like that. That
Mm.
was another fun thing in my career. Like,
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned Painkiller Jane because
yeah,
obviously I have this one here,
yeah, it's
and
Amanda, yeah, the
yeah,
yeah Mark
and
Wade,
I I like issue zeros to see how, because they tend to be an origin story, of course,
yes, yeah,
and this is one of my favorite origin stories because you didn't just tell it; you told it around the scene of obviously a victim of crime dying, and the
right,
main character comforting her with a story, and essentially it is a very tragic story because obviously the character is essentially used for what is seen as the greater good. She has her life ripped away from her for it.
yeah,
And the scene I always loved the most, and I'll see if you can see it here, is when she escapes the hospital and
yeah,
goes to her home and find that her fiance has now moved on
yeah.
and has got a child with someone else. And by the way, the Jay and Silent Bob cameo there was nicely done. And I always that image sort of struck me the most because it's kind of the way she looks. It's like the mummy from the
Yeah.
old black and white film, and out there in the rain, and she's seeing what she's lost. That image stuck with me for some time. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite
It's one of mine
origin
too.
stories.
Amanda drew the hell out of that.
Oh, she did.
You know,
Um, but the
she
funny
gets the
thing,
emotional. She gets the emotional stuff. You can look at the characters' faces and really feel what they're feeling,
yeah,
and that's one of
yes,
Amanda's superpowers. Is like acting is right there. The acting is
yeah.
right on the character.
Well, she is responsible for one of my, and yourself, of course, are responsible for one of my favorite covers ever. But we'll get to that later on.
Okay, all right.
But the funniest part about this book is at the end, wouldn't you know it, there's an interview with Amanda Connor.
Yeah.
And the first question she gets asked is, why did you choose to draw this book? Do you remember what the answer she gave was?
No, no.
Right, I can't laugh while I read this out. Because the creators promised me sexual favors.
There you go. That's one of them did.
I can't think of any joke I can tell on that one, so I'm just going to leave that there.
It's funny because when we did the pro, right? We did the
Yeah,
pro with Garth
yeah,
and
yeah.
Steve, and I mean that was with Garth and Amanda, and like Garth, we all discussed the story, then Garth wrote it up, and then Amanda took it too far. Like Amanda literally went in there and made it even worse, you know. Um, and I always try to explain, like she is like she got a little bit of a guy's brain, like thinks like a guy. Um, and there's so many little in jokes in the pro with the storytelling, but that's always been Amanda's thing, like with the Jane Zero or even like Silk Spectre later on. There's so much
Mm.
in her work.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of mental weightlifting that she does. That's why she doesn't do a ton of work, because everything, every panel, every cover is so thought out, that she spends a lot of time on it. She's not an artist to rush, and that's why we don't have a ton of books by her.
No, I understand that.
Even doing the Power Girl run for 10 issues or 12 issues, that was like, a year and a half of her life, and she killed herself on it, and it shows because it still stands up. Even the
Oh,
Harley stuff,
absolutely.
it still stands up. That book is old. That book is 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That Zero, it still looks fresh. It doesn't look like an old comic.
Mm.
You know, it still has a really fresh look to it, and I think it's just Amanda's style really translates very well for comics.
Mm. So my my first exposure to your work that I can remember
Mhm.
was with obviously Joe Quesada on the first two issues of Ninja K you did for Valiant,
Yes,
because you did the first two issues and then somebody else took over.
we did the. I think we did the three. I think we did the first three.
Oh yeah, sorry, I beg your pardon, first three.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it was Mark Moretti wrote it, and
Hmm.
Joe and I did the art on it. Yeah,
But obviously the first sort of time that you really sort of popped out to me
yeah,
was, of course, Marvel Knights.
yeah.
Now, what I remember of this, because I got Wizard magazine at the time, and I'll pause to say I missed that magazine. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, me too. I love
Yeah,
Lizard Man. I still think it would do well right now. I think
yeah,
people
I think
argue
so.
with
Yeah,
me. People argue with me that the internet does that job, and I said no. The internet, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's something about having the book and the prices on the
yeah,
back,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
there's like
absolutely.
there was more to it than just interviews. There was premiere art and
Hmm.
stuff. I
But
still think it would do well, but who am I to know? I don't know anything.
No, no, I dearly miss the Wizard because part of the joy I had with it was not only reading the stories beforehand, it was going to the price guide at the back of what
Yeah,
was out at times, going, I've got that one, I've got that one, and sort of
yeah,
realizing, that the a comic I own is suddenly a buck more expensive than what it used to be. But what I remember of this at the time was that Marvel were in some dire straits,
yeah.
and
They were,
again, I'm going off memory here, but
yeah. Chapter
one,
11.
yeah,
They were in chapter 11.
one of the penultimate Daredevil books that was put out, and I remember this bit. It was said that it took something like 13 different artists and inkers to get the book to print, and then you guys were brought in to reboot the whole thing,
Yeah,
and not only, of course, you have Daredevil, which was groundbreaking, but you also had Black Panther, uh, the Punisher, Inhumans. I mean, how did this all come down, and what are your memories of it? Because obviously the initial storyline and the approach you guys going forward, it obviously influenced a lot, such as the Affleck film, the Netflix series, and of course what Disney are doing with it now. So what do you remember of it?
so we were there was a guy, the guy that was running Marvel Comics was named Joe Calamari. He was the president,
Mm-hmm.
and he called us in because they liked what we were doing with Event Comics, and Gareb Shamus was responsible for this. The Marvel Comics said, we're in chapter 11, we're not doing well, we canceled Daredevil, they canceled Punisher, they canceled a ton of books,
Yeah.
and he's like, we don't know what to do. And Gareb says, why don't you get Joe and Jimmy to come in? They know everybody. They'll kill themselves to make these books good. He goes, and so we had an interview and we met with Joe Calamari and he made us an offer. And we came back with another offer and went back and forth a couple of times. But they said they wanted us to start with 4 books. So we picked the characters that we felt were grounded. Like,
Yes.
um, Daredevil was an obvious one because our buddy Kevin Smith, Kevin said he wanted to write it. So I said, all right, we'll do that one together. Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then Black Panther, Christopher Priest was Joe's editor at DC at one point, Jim Owsley, whatever you want to call him. And Joe said, well, I want to bring Jim in. And I said, well, I'm going to bring my high school buddy in for that one then, because I owe him. And that
Mm-hmm.
was Mark Texera. So, bing, Black Panther, right? Now, if you look at the characters we picked, Black Panther and Inhumans, they're both from the books we love, which is Fantastic Four. That's where they started. So
Ah,
we
yeah.
went for the Fantastic Four characters. Nobody was doing the Inhumans. Nobody was doing Black Panther. Nobody cared about those characters. And Marvel didn't want to give us. They said you can't touch our popular characters. You can't touch Wolverine. You can't touch X-Men. You can't touch this. You can't touch that. So we picked the 4 that we thought we could do the best on. And with the Punisher, we said we're going to try something a little different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And even if people hate it, they're going to buy it to see what we're doing. Um, and then we got all the teams together. They gave us an office in Manhattan, in Manhattan, in the we had the penthouse of the 375 Madison Avenue
Excellent.
thing. That's what we asked for. We asked for the penthouse so we can work out of it. And yeah, we had all our artists come up and we came up with a game plan and they gave us a launch month and we said, well, we want to do one a week. Our plan was every time you went to the comic store, there was a new Marvel Knights book or a number 2 Marvel Knights. But every week had a Marvel Knights book. So we made our schedule around that. Daredevil was the first week, Punisher second, Black Panther, and Inhumans. And we had a plan. And our other plan was we're not going to be quiet about these comics. We're going to go out there and promote them.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Joe and I did some morning shows in New York on TV. Kevin Smith did Letterman, and he
Mm-hmm.
did a couple of shows talking about Daredevil. We figured, we figured the problem with comics we're having at the time is we knew they were cool, but the rest of the world looked down on comics a little bit, right?
Mm.
The other thing is, Joe and I were pretty chatty and pretty social, and we said we have to go out and do what Stan did. We have to go out and promote and make comics fun and go talk to Wizard and make sure they cover us. I did the Wizard Awards in Chicago. I hosted that. I hosted Stan Lee panels. Joe did some TV. We went and we looked at it from an advertising point of view. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're not only going to sell the line, we're going to sell you on the entire line of books. You're going to feel you can't go to the comic store without buying all of the Marvel Knight titles, not
Mm.
just one. You're going to want to buy them all. And we spent a lot of time figuring that out. And we surrounded ourselves with friends, you know.
Mm.
Everybody working for, again, we were not allowed to use anyone that worked for Marvel
Okay.
at the time, right?
Mm.
So we brought in our own people and our friends, and we got to work, man. We had a couple of months before the first books came out, so we made sure we had some in the drawer. And then it was hustle, 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 man. We did so much press and we did so much, but we never expected it to hit as big as it did. I mean, and I think Joe and I figured out we did a signing for Daredevil one night in New York City in Midtown.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, we did one in Los Angeles at Golden Apple Comics. We flew out to LA. Okay. The one in New York, the line was so big, it went around the city block. And they had to bring cops in because people were trying to get home to work and the sidewalks were full with people. So the cops came in and they put some borders up and they made the whole line go around the entire block and have gaps where people can go into the stores that were not the comic store.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when we went, and that was like the first sign, like, what the hell's going on, right? and then we did LA, and I remember in LA we did the signing there, and it was a huge line, and we started seeing celebrities come in, like celebrities were there,
Oh, really?
and I became friends with one of the guys right away. He was online, and I look up and I said, "You're John Singleton, the director," and he goes, "Yeah, man." And I said,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
said, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "I want my Daredevil signed." And we, until he passed, we were good friends.
It's a shame he did.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Mm.
But that's when and then I remember we did I'm trying to think of what it was. We were invited to a screening of something, and afterwards we went to the party, and after party, and I had Wesley Snipes came up to me and was asking me about playing Black Panther. He wanted to be Black Panther,
Oh.
and we met all these different people. I think it was through John actually, Denzel Washington. We met all these Hollywood people, and they were asking about the comics, and we kept shuffling them off to Avi Rod and all those guys because that's not our job.
Mm.
Um, but we knew we were on to something when the book started getting treated a little better. Like, and again, we treated them like they were gems because we full computer coloring, full editorial. We made sure every book looked fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
But we realized the more respect we gave to the books, the more people treated them with respect. And we started noticing that news stories were picking up the books. People were talking about comic books. Celebrities started talking about comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the wave we started with Marvel Knights, and it just took off from there.
I'm going to show this
yeah,
off quickly because one of the ones
yeah.
I've got also is number 7 of Daredevil, again signed by
Joe. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I'll get to that. I'll get you that, Justin. I'll get that cover when
Yeah.
I see you. Yeah. So it was a great time. We did a lot of things right, which it's luck of the draw, right? I think we were too stupid to know to understand how big the thing we were trying to do was, and it worked to our advantage. Because we never sat there and said we can't do that. We'd always go, how are we going to do this? Like, how are we going to who do we know that can get us in contact with Saturday Night Live? Who do we know and we would just, push through it.
Yeah.
So it was a good time.
Well, obviously, the line was significant for a number of reasons because obviously within Humans, it was the quiet debut of the new Black Widow.
Right.
Which is obviously prominently in the films now. But I
Yeah.
know that what I'm going to share now was personal to you. I'm just finding the link so I get the right one.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Because obviously with the Punisher series, you got to work with Bernie Wrightson because I remember you saying you were described in Wizard as being a Wrightson geek, I think was the phrase used. So, and obviously I hate saying it because sadly he's no longer with us.
No.
What are your memories of working with him?
So he was one of when I was in like 11th grade in high school, I went to a thing called the Comic Art Gallery in New York. It was like right off 59th Street. It was the size, honestly, of a bus, maybe half a bus.
Hmm.
It was small, but they had a Bernie Wrightson show.
Yeah.
And Bernie sat there for the whole show. He sat at a table, and you would buy a book and he would sign it. And it had all his paintings on the wall. And I was like, well, he was like one of my favorite artists. And I waited till the show almost ended. And then I went up to him and I said, hey, listen, I want to do what you do, but I noticed you use brushes and pens, and he made a whole list of all the pens and brushes for me. And then he showed me how to roll a brush, and he says, "Here's how you get a tip on the brush." He sat there and for 25 minutes, sat there and showed me how to do things, and so generous. And like I was already a fan of his already, and then he went above and beyond. Right? He went above and beyond. And when I asked him to do the Punisher, Joe and I approached him. You know, he just said, he goes, it's pretty amazing the kid that bugged me about the art supplies is now gonna, and he remembered me, and we became friends ever since. Like Bernie would be, whenever we'd have our parties in New York and stuff, Bernie would be there. And he was just a great guy. I mean, we literally saw him the week before he passed. We saw him because he came down to Tampa and he's like, look, I got to go in for this operation on my brain. It may or may not work. So I just want to see you before I go. He didn't know. Like it was like one of those things. He didn't know if he'd live or die. And unfortunately, it didn't go well. Um, but he was one of the most generous people. That was the hardest book I ever had to ink because he only did breakdowns. He only did outlines. So he didn't. No blacks were indicated. Although I do have it's hanging up in another room. I do have the original painting by him and Joe Jusko of the Punisher coming out of the grave, like he's coming out with the
Yeah, I
lightning
know.
hitting on.
Yeah.
I have that original, and he gave me the pencil version of that as a gift.
Um,
Just a generous guy. I celebrate him for the rest of my life. I think he's one of the best we had in comics, and nobody has a bad story about him. He's one of those guys. He's one of those
mm,
guys. You meet him, and you're like, I just met comic book royalty.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it didn't end there either, because obviously another Marvel Knights book that was definitely had an impact was, of course, the Welcome Back Frank storyline, and
Yeah.
now you're inking Steve Dillon, and
Yes.
this story, it not only in well, it brought sort of back Frank back to I don't know, a more grounded level. Could you say?
Yeah,
Uh,
what Clark did is he looked at why people like the Punisher, and he wrote
yeah,
its own adventure.
I've
And
still got the trade paperback of it here.
yeah, I mean,
It's a
so
fantastic read.
so we did the other Punisher books because we had to wait a year. We knew we were getting Stephen Garth on Punisher, but they had to finish the Preacher book for DC.
Yeah.
So for that year, we did these other mini series at Marvel Knights. And then Steve started getting me pages. Again, Steve, I'm still great friends with Garth, but all three of us would hang out all the time. We were just friends. And when we started doing Welcome Back Frank, we would be laughing out loud how crazy the comic was. We just let and it, but and then I remember because I wanted Tim Bradstreet for the covers, and I approached Tim Bradstreet and I said, look, he wanted like $300 or $400 more per cover than I had in the budget. I had to run by a budget. And I told him, I said, do me a favor, do these covers for $300 less. I think we were paying him $1,500 at the time. I said, do it for $300. He goes, I guarantee you, I'm going to give you the whole run of the covers. You get do every Punisher cover. I guarantee you, this is going to put you on the map like nothing else. You just do
Hmm.
these covers every month. And he finally said, okay. And boy, those covers put him on a map. I
Oh
mean,
God, yes,
you
yes.
know, because I knew he was the right guy for it. Right.
Mm,
And then, and then working with Steve, I mean, Steve was a drinking buddy. He was, what a pleasure.
yeah.
I learned a simple piece of advice from Steve. I'll never forget. Because we're talking about backgrounds and this and that. And he goes to me, Jimmy, he goes, the word balloon has a little pointer on it and it points to the head. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, so make sure that head is doing its work. Make sure the head looks good. He goes, anything after that is extra. He goes, but if you make that head look good, then that's all they read. He goes, they read from the words to the pointer to the head.
Yeah.
And it always stayed with me because his stuff was so open and so simple, but it was always great looking, like it was just Steve. It was so much fun inking him because we would sit there sometimes together. I went over to the UK and went to his studio and worked with him for a while, and he would just, yeah, put some buildings back there, and you could, put some texture on that wall. And he knew I was like, yeah, okay, let me do that. It was so much fun to work with Steve. I mean, I love Steve. We had Joe and I had a bar that we frequented in New York called Openers, and it was open till 4 in the morning every day, and it was a great Irish bar. We knew everybody there. I even had a locker in the bar. Right, that's how much I went
Excellent.
there, and that was our wayward station for any creator that would come from overseas. We tell them no matter what time you go in, bring your stuff over. If you can't check in the hotel or if whatever, bring your stuff over to the bar, and Noel and the guys will take care of you. And they did. And that's how I would meet Steve every time he came in. He'd be at the bar.
Mm.
And the bartender, Noel, I remember every time he was at the bar, Noel had him draw a character for him, like a little 8.5 by 11. He had a pad, and every time Steve was drinking there, he would draw Punisher, he would draw the Preacher, he would draw, Tulip, anything. And when Steve passed away, he put all of them. He had like 45 drawings by
Oh,
Steve, and he
wow.
put them all together, and all headshots, all around the same size of every character Steve ever did, Hellblazer, everything, Judge Dredd, all that stuff.
Mm.
What a funny thing, and he took care of his bartender, obviously, and vice
Oh, yeah,
versa.
absolutely.
I don't think, and Steve was not allowed to pay for drinks. That was the rule. Joe and I would pick up the tabs for
Okay.
our guys, so we sent them to the bar. We would take care of everybody for them. Good times, though.
So obviously, Welcome Back, Frank.
Yes.
It influenced the Thomas Jane movie, which
Yes.
I was a fan of, and
Yeah.
it disappointed me that it wasn't more of a success than what it was. But it's Hollywood, I suppose.
They did a stupid thing in that movie.
Oh, go on.
Okay, because they hired John Travolta, who gives a shit, right? But they needed a big name, right? They hired John Travolta. He's the guy that made sure they didn't shoot it in New York. He said, I want it shot where I live in Tampa.
Oh, okay.
And that's the only reason that movie took place there, was because John Travolta said, I won't do the movie unless it takes place where I live, which was a big down part. It should have been New York all the way. I
Ah,
like the movie, and I think Tom did a great job. I just wish
mm,
it stayed in New York. I mean, why is it in Tampa? Was
mm.
beyond me.
But that wasn't all it led to, because you brought back some fond memories of this when you mentioned it on Twitter some time ago. Was the Punisher video game,
Yes.
which was obviously a continue. I can't wait for this. It was a continuation of the story, and Thomas Jane come back to do the voice. And
Yes.
I remember you saying that there was a funny story about how you got involved in this game.
I did. This
So
is
can you tell it?
yeah. Take Two Games was they got the license from all. We went to the Punisher game.
Yeah.
We want the writer that does the Punisher to write the game,
Mm-hmm.
and Darwin, and then I saw Garth that night, and we were in the bar, and he says, "Yeah, man, I met with these game guys," and I said, "How did that go?" He goes, "Not great." He goes, "They asked me if I played video games, and I told them I played Miss Pac-Man." And he says, so they weren't really crazy about that because they want to write a full video game. And I said, well, go back and tell them I know how to do that stuff. I said, why don't you and I will do it? So he went back and he said, how about we have Jimmy? And they met with me and they said, oh yeah, let's do it. And so I did write it with Garth. I mean, I had to he doesn't play video games, so I had to kind of say, okay, here's how the format is, and it's not as simple as you think it is. This is going to be a complicated game. And we wrote all these crazy scenes, and we wrote it like we were writing the comic. We just made it as crazy as we could. And to their credit, Take Two Games pretty much did everything we wrote. We were laughing,
It's the one-liners that the Punisher comes out with in that, which he delivers the most sort of like kind of tone. The one that still tickles me to this day whenever I think about it is after he's escaped the island with Nick Fury unconscious and the nuke goes off, and obviously he's jumped in a plane, thrown the pilot out, and taken off. And the pilot goes, "I can't believe you let me live." And then the nuke goes off. It cuts back to the interrogation, and Soap and the other detective, and her name escapes me, looking at the pictures, and they're going, "You did that?" And Soap goes, "I thought the island was uninhabited." And the Punisher goes, "It's uninhabited now."
Yeah.
That's the one. Whenever I think of that game, that's the one moment I always come back to. Just that complete "I don't give a shit" moment.
Tom did such a great job
Oh, he
voicing
did.
that game. Like he just like he went full Punisher. He just
Yeah,
lowered his
yeah,
voice, and he and I are still friends. I see him every year, so
yeah.
we see each other all the time. The game was so much fun. We at one point we thought there's no way they're gonna keep everything we did. And for us, when we saw they gave us the cutscenes in a row to watch based on what we wrote. And when they kept Iron Man going, I think I need a drink.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god, they're just keeping it because we wrote that as a joke. And I'm like, oh my god, they're keeping everything. And I'm like,
yeah,
and then we're like, I wonder if they're gonna do the piranha thing, and then there it is, the guy
yeah,
shooting the
yeah,
piranha.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, I was really proud of that game because it was way before, and again they still censored it because they did this black and white thing, like it would be color and then go black and white.
Yeah.
But the original one was so unbelievably violent,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we were, like I said, Garth and I, we did very well with it. We I got a lot of game work after that. um
I'm about to get to that.
okay, but we were so pleased in the way it came out, because we both were like, now that's a Punisher game, like that's the
Yes.
Punisher. This is not like another group of guys took the characters and said this is what we think it is. This was like exactly what Welcome Back Frank was doing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I the only bum part I have is I still think they should re-release it on new formats just to let people, as corny as it is,
No,
it's still fun,
yeah. Well, it's one of the arguments I have with my friends with why I'm kind of falling away from modern gaming and sort of reverting back to the more retro stuff or more smaller games, because a lot
Right.
of the modern stuff that comes out just isn't as fun.
Well, because they lack stories.
Yes.
What's happening is, well, if we talk about Injustice, that'll well cover that Injustice. But what they do is they'll get a guy like me and Justin Gray, and we'll go in and write something, and then we work with a group, and they don't want to pay us again, so they get all the other guys that worked with us to write it,
Mm.
and inevitably it bites them in the ass. They still haven't learned yet. Like there's a reason why we do this for a living. Like we
Hmm.
don't. It's it's not like fixing a leak in your roof. Like once you see the guy put the tar paper down. Oh, I could do it now. It's a
Mm.
lot more involved. But anyway, we can move forward from there.
Yeah. Well, the one obviously you kind of prepped this for me to raise because this is one of my favorite franchises. Because you and Justin
Dead
wrote
Space.
Dead Space Downfall. Now,
Yeah.
the Dead Space series is one of my favorites because I love sci-fi horror,
Yeah.
um, and the games itself were very reminiscent in part of films like Event Horizon and whatnot, and the necromorphs were such a unique enemy. But this whole story of this just fascinated me from start to finish, and I loved Downfall. I because I enjoy a good animated movie, and
Yeah.
to see, excuse the phrase, how the shit went down before the main character Isaac arrives.
Right.
I really enjoyed it, and it's knowing that this movie is out there. It makes me sad in the end because obviously Dead Space did not do as well in EA's eyes to warrant any more. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what are your
S-
memories of this, and what do you think on the whole thing?
well, I remember I got hired to do it. Because I was working on Painkiller Jane. I handed in my episode of Painkiller Jane. I only wrote one episode,
Mm,
and they loved it. Those Stars Channel loved it, and they said, "How do you feel about writing an animated thing based on a video game?" And I said, "Oh, what's the video game?" And they said, "Dead Space." And I said, "I never heard of it, right? Because it
mm,
wasn't even." And I said, "But I work with Justin Gray," and they said, "We don't care. You bring in whoever you want on it." And they flew me out to EA Games, and I went out to San Francisco, and they walked me through the floor where they were developing the Dead Space game. And They showed me everything, and I said, "What's the story?" And they're like, "Well, we have a little bit of a story, blah 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 blah." Okay, we want you to write a 90-minute animated feature. Okay, we need you to define the universe, the religion, what it is beforehand in this movie, and then end it with the ship in space full of these creatures. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. The first thing Justin and I did is we wrote like a 40-page Bible on what the religion is for all these
Hmm.
people. Because I said, until we know this, they were not thrilled when we handed that in.
Oh.
Okay. So right away we knew we were dealing with a couple of egos because they're like, what is this? And I said, well, what you presented it to us, it needs more backstory, because if we're going to have people that are so committed to this religion, we have to make it make sense for them why they believe it, right? What happened on their planet that they've turned to this religion, and why did they so fiercely connect with this religion? It was just, for us, it was basic storytelling. We needed a Bible.
Yeah.
They were not happy with it, and we got a note from Stars saying they just want you to write the film, stop with all the extra stuff. And we're like, okay. So we're like, okay, but for us, we needed it for ourselves. We
Yeah,
needed
of
to know
course.
motivation. Okay, we wrote the animated movie. Um, a lot of it's in it. They changed a couple of things because there's a first scene. It's in the movie, but it's tweaked. But there's a scene where the main girl, I'm forgetting her name in the thing, but she's it opened with her in a steam room naked, and then we see the steam go through the vents, and we follow the steam through the vents, and that's how we get to see the whole ship.
Okay.
And it's in there, and a version of it is in there, but we never had a naked fat guy running like that. Was So they added a couple of weird things, like they added that we had a whole scene, which you saw in the movie where they were growing the food and the little creatures came. It's a really creepy scene that was in it, but they called us and they said we can't. We're running out of money on this. We don't think we can do the boss battle, the final scene, because I had a fight. We had a final scene that's not in the movie. Okay, they had to cut it out. They did the art for it. They did some art
Yes.
for it.
Yeah, yeah. I think this was on the Blu-ray as a deleted scene where you got the sketches. Yeah, I think I know what you're
Right.
talking about. Yeah.
So that was, we had a last boss battle that almost, like, like it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they just called us and they said we can't do it. So is there a way you can end this quicker without that scene? And I was like, oh no. I said everything we wrote was leading to that scene. Why, it was a reveal and all that stuff. So we tweaked it at the last minute, and then they gave it to Chuck Patton, who did a great job directing it. And the animation was, in different people's hands and everything. But for something that was a Stars Channel exclusive,
Mm.
I thought they did a really good job. And I thought that it's jumpy in parts because they did change some stuff to match the game. So there's some really dialogue stuff that's cut a little bit, which
Mm.
only we're gonna notice, to be honest with you. We noticed the jump in scenes, like why did it go from here to there? It's supposed to go
Mm.
smoother. But they were cutting for time and money. But overall, we were super happy when we finally saw the premiere of it. And the EA Games people were so happy with it because it literally set up the game for them. So overall it was a great gig. I mean, I wish it would have been exactly what we did. Um, you know, uh, it's funny because I when it came out, I watched a couple of people reviewing it, and I kept thinking, yeah, I know why you feel that way because they cut that scene out. We had
Mm.
it in there. Like, I'm very much about linear storytelling. Like, everything should be there. But a movie, it gets edited and it gets cut. These they did cuts for money and for time. But overall, I'm still very proud of it. I still had a great time doing it. The EA Games guys treated me very well.
Mm-hmm.
They sent me to I did some PR for it and everything, and it was good. We got paid, so that was nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
We Justin and I really thought it was the beginning of us doing a lot more work like that, but you learn in Hollywood it's so random. It's so random. You can do
Mm.
greatest work, and somebody next week they don't know who you are.
Mm.
So, but it was a good time. It was a good fun.
So for a while, I didn't collect comics because actually my wife and I, we had kids, and
Yes, happens.
yeah, and unfortunately things had to sort of stop, and uh, I had to make financial space, so I didn't collect comics for a long time.
Right.
But I know that in that time, one of the things I missed was obviously the New 52 launch of DC
Right. Right.
and uh, Harley Quinn,
Yeah.
of course, which of course you worked on with the fantastic Amanda
We did a
Conner.
couple of issues.
Oh yeah, well
I think 100 and something issues.
yeah. Now obviously I've got the first cover here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now what I have known, I've read up about it. Uh, was obviously you did 30 issues for the first series, which is obviously the New 52. Uh,
Right.
and then it got relaunched as part of the Rebirth line.
Rebirth. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the stat I've got for that is that the first issue sold nearly 400,000 copies and was
Yes.
the top selling comic of that month of release.
Yeah. Yeah. I think almost a year. I
Yeah.
think for the year.
And the character, you blew up her popularity, especially with cosplayers, because I know I've seen some
Yes.
pictures you've posted with Amanda standing next to a few of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we get to Power Girl, talk about your time on Harley Quinn, because I mean, so to go with from Marvel Knights to Harley Quinn and in a little bit Power Girl, you've kind of got three cultural impacts in the comic industry under your belt. That's got to feel great from a personal perspective, if anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a lucky bastard, so I'll say that right away. um, I when we were offered, Dan DiDio offered us
Mm.
Harley, and
I
he
should show off. I got this as well,
yeah,
which is
that's one of my favorite ones. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
one of my. But Dan DiDio offered us Harley, and I was like, I don't know much about the character, and he says, well, maybe you and Amanda want to do it, and I went home, and Amanda and I looked at Harley, and we made like 3 or 4 notes. I said, well, she's in an abusive relationship, and I said, I can't write a book where she's the Joker's henchman. I'm like, that's exhausting,
yeah.
right? And I'm not a big fan of the Joker anyway. So I'm like,
Okay.
that character's been done a million times. I get it, right? But Harley, I don't know who the character was. So did a little reading. I'm like, okay, so did people love the Paul Dini and Bruce Timm one? I'm like, I get that, but the character's not going to grow unless we get her out of Gotham. I just said, so we had a list of demands with Dan, and we said, look, we want to take her out of Gotham. I said, I read one of the books where it says Paul Dini said that she was born in Brooklyn in Canarsie. I said, but it makes more sense if she lives in Coney Island because she's an amusement park. She's colorful. Nobody's going to blink if she's in Coney Island. And I told Dan, I said, I don't want to do it we don't want to do it in Gotham because she's just this secondary Batman character if she stays there. And he's like, look, do whatever you want. I'm like, okay. So, and Amanda said, no woman wears the same thing twice, right? So Amanda tells Dan, she goes, I redesigned the costume so it looks, because we're going to make her a roller derby girl. And she goes, but I'm going to keep changing the costume because she's going to dress appropriately for whatever her story is.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan was like, literally said, look, it's probably not going to last very long. Do whatever you want. That's what Dan DiDio's quote was, do whatever you want. And we did. And then before we even had number one, I was in San Diego. You'll appreciate this story. I'm in San Diego, and I have a dream, like before, about Harley Quinn. And that morning, I wake up and Amanda and I tell her, I said, listen, I had a dream about the character. And she goes, well, what is it? And I said, well, I want to pitch it to Dan. We have breakfast with him in an hour. So we went and we met Dan at, I think, a Marriott hotel. And I said, listen, I know we have number one coming out in a couple of months. I said, we want to do a Zero book. And he's like, Zero? And I'm like, yeah, Harley Zero. And he's like, why? And I said, I had this dream last night that I got a different artist for every page. And they were trying out to be the Harley artist. And he laughed at it. And he's like, an artist for every page? I said, yeah, different artist for every page. And by the end, we find the person that's going to draw the book, which was Chad, right? Which we knew. And Dan says, okay, if you go in a con and you can get 22 people to sign off to do a page in the book, you can do it, right? So Man and I went around with a list, and we stopped by Adam Hughes' table. We stopped by Darwin Cook. We stopped by Becky Coonan. We walked through the con, Artist Alley, and said, would you do a page for us if we need it by this deadline? They're like, sign me in. Even Bruce Timm, I'll do a page, sure. Jim Lee, I'll do a page. Okay. So I presented it to Dan later that day. And I said, I got everybody. And he's like looking at the list and he's like, you're going to be responsible for getting these people to work. And I'm like, I know. And he goes, how are you going to write a story that connects all of that? And I'm like, that's our problem. I said, I want the green light to do this. He goes, you got the green light. So Amanda drew the cover. And yeah, it was a little wrangling to get all the artists. And then we were like, we wrote a page for each artist. And some of the artists changed the page. They changed stuff. Darwin Cook, I had a whole thing with a moose. And Harley Quinn was on skis that were made out of bacon. And I was just making fun of Canada, right? And Darwin turned in a page where Amanda and I are getting married. And that's in zero. And then Amanda punches somebody and goes, I'm Amanda Kana, bitches. It's so crazy. And I'm like, okay, we got all these pages. Now I have to sew the story together. And we wrote the dialogue after we got them in a row. And yeah, and that's how that book happened. So that's a crazy thing. And then we just started doing the regular book, and for some reason, by issue 3 or 4, it was outselling the JLA, it was outselling Superman. And Dan's like, there's something with this book. There's like a beat you guys have. And I said, here's the thing. I said, Amanda and I are very funny people. Like, we enjoy humor. I said, number 2, we live in New York, and there's a certain beat to New York. That's what we caught with the characters. Put her in a freak show. We're dealing with regular people. There were no super villains in the comic. It was just continuity, straight continuity for over 100 issues. It was straight continuity. We didn't break it up. And we hit on something with her breaking up with the Joker right away. Like, people were like, oh, she didn't take abuse anymore, and she stepped out on her own, and she's her own character now. And so we got lucky. We just went with our instincts, and sometimes that's you trust the creators. Dan said we were the right creators for the character at the time. That's what Dan said. He said he also called everything Amanda and I did the Jamandaverse.
I like that.
He said, in your universe, there's a continuity always. Even if you come back to the character 6 years later, he goes, you always put Terra in, Atlee, you always put Power Girl in. He goes, even when you did Starfire, like, those characters came through that book. He goes, you have a continuity with your books. And he goes, as creators. And he says, so when you do something new, people always want to pick it up because they remember the last time you did it, and there's the continuity is back again. And he said, I don't normally like that, but it works with what you guys are doing. So basically, he was the editor responsible. He was the guy. I mean, Chris Conroy was our editor. We love Chris. But Dan was the guy that made sure he would say, leave them alone. Let them just make the comic the way they see it. Like, that literally was his thing.
So, as you've mentioned her, I'll bring this up now, of course.
Yeah.
You did the first, I think it was 10 issues, 11 issues?
12 issues.
12 issues Power Girl.
Yeah.
Now, again, something else that had a significant impact on the cosplay community.
Yes.
I was going to make a joke about that, but I won't, just because I've
very well endowed women had a character to identify with.
Yeah, what I was going to say was I can see 2 good reasons here, but
3. She has a nice smile, though.
Oh yeah. But this was also a different one, because what I've read of this, because this was also sadly something I missed, was that the focus was more on her balancing her superhero life with her private life. Yeah. And it had a much lighter tone. What do you remember about this one?
I remember we got the character, and I went into the editor. Justin and I went into the editor and said, so where does Karen Starr, where does she live? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, does she have an apartment or something? And I'm like, does she have a secret? Yeah, it's Karen Starr. I'm like, where does she work? And they're like, well, Star Labs, I guess. Like, nobody had a clear answer. And I was like, okay, you want me to start this at number 1? And this is Dan DiDio too. And I said, Dan, I don't know who the character is, right? I said, I know when she shows up in a book, she's usually angry. That's how everybody writes her. She's very angry all the time, And I said, that only goes so far with a character. Like, we have to, if she's angry, why is she angry, right? And then I said, where does she live? Where does she work? We had the basic questions. I always say, what do they want? What are they afraid of? I needed to have all these answers in this book. So we took 12 issues to establish, like, who is this girl?
Mm.
Who is this woman from another planet that's here and trying to make a life for herself?
Yes.
Does she have a pet? Does she have people she works in an office with? Does she have any friends? Does she? And so Justin and I were like trying to dissect all that. And I remember we had Aaron Lopresti was supposed to draw it, and then Vertigo poached him. So we lost Aaron Lopresti. There was another artist too where they got poached again. And
Uh,
Amanda kept seeing how pissed off I was getting. Amanda goes, You know what? I'll do the first 12 issues. Let me just, well, she says, I'll do the first 6 issues until you find a regular person. And she wound up staying till 12. But
mm.
in the 12 issues, we did what, we got lucky having Amanda, right? Because Amanda was the perfect artist for this. When you have a woman who can draw women like that
Yep.
and not, and understand, like Amanda Drew is a big busty girl. Amanda says she's a well endowed woman. Why would I try to hide that? Like that's how she's built,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Amanda took a very straight approach to it. Of course, redesigned the costume because she has to all the time. She
Yeah.
loves doing that. Um, and we just went in there and wrote what we thought was an adventure with Power Girl. How do we get to know Power Girl?
Mm-hmm.
And it sold pretty well for the 12 issues, but a year later, the trade book sold insanely well.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, the back issues are hard to find. And they released the trade again last year, and it instantly sold a ton more
Yeah.
again because it's been out of print. And so we hit on something that was before Harley, by the way. So Power Girl was actually before Harley. But
Okay.
we hit on something with Power Girl, um, and it's something that's been related back to Amanda and I many times, and Justin. Um, is that the books we do with the characters we do, there is a certain amount of joy in the comics and the characters, and it's refreshing from every other book that's coming out. And it's
Mm.
and it's not the joy where you have a lot of creators try to make things quirky or funny or the it's just the character themselves have a certain joy about the stories and um and it's a certain amount of colorful. The books are colorful and they're bright and they're bold and they're fresh. And when we did Harley, it hit we had a young audience and an
Yeah.
older. And I can't tell you, for years we'd have moms and daughters who read the book every month together. Like, so there's a certain joy to stuff we do, and that's what Dan calls the Jamanda universe. It's a certain kind
Mm-hmm.
of fun and goofiness. You guys don't do the traditional angst driven hardcore characters, and if you do, you kind of break their brains a little bit and try to
Yeah.
figure out why they're so angry. But it's just the style we do, and just the way Amanda and I look at the world. We look too hard at it and seriously at it. There's no joy in it, right?
Mm.
You have to sometimes bring the joy into the room, and that's how we approach these characters. But we never thought Power Girl. It's Amanda's favorite character, by the way, even before Harley. Power Girl is her favorite character. But we just did what we thought we should do. Editorial didn't give us any problems. They were like, "You guys have fun," and I think fun is the key word with both series. I think.
Yeah. Well, as I said previously, Amanda is responsible for one of my favourite covers ever.
What? Let's
And
see it. Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I remember writing that with
yeah,
Justin because I was laughing.
yeah,
I'm like I want like the threat to Power Girl to be something that she can't beat up.
yeah.
And this kid was like, took pictures of her changing and was gonna expose he was gonna expose her identity unless he pretty much blackmails her to come into the comic shop and say,
Yeah.
yeah, she's with me. Um I that was like, to me it was like, what can she have to deal with that brute force isn't gonna be the thing where she has to
Mm-hmm.
think through it. And it's a fun arc with that kid because
Yeah.
it's like every fanboy's dream, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh you know like, yeah, Power Girl and me hang out.
Yeah.
That cover is just, Amanda went full on
Yeah.
big busty. It's just
Well,
the lighting,
it's
the
the
full
look on
mouse
her
lighting.
face that
Yeah.
kills me whenever I see it. It's that look of, oh, screw this. And like I said, every time I see it, I smile because I just love that look.
We if you notice, the guy on the left is reading Jonah Hex, and the one on the
Yes, I
right is
have.
reading
Yeah,
Wonder Woman.
yeah, yeah.
Those are the other books we were working on at the time.
Mm,
But yeah, this was just a celebration of comics, right? This was
yeah,
just, you know, we still have the original for that cover because we giggle at it all the time.
yeah. Up and
And
rightly
Amanda
so.
does. Amanda loves to do the lettering on the art too sometimes, so that's Um, but look at Paul Mount's coloring on the light hitting Power Girl.
Yeah,
Man, he's good.
yeah. I love it. It's like I said. Whenever I see a picture of it anywhere, I smile because the look on her face is just priceless. And
Oh,
yeah.
the scene where he goes into the store with them in the comic is hysterical. I mean,
Mm,
again, I was just, it was wish fulfillment. Like I wish I was a kid and I had Power Girl as my friend, and how would that go down at the comic shop? Um, I look, I get it. Some people didn't like the book because we didn't have villains. Like we didn't have traditional villains. But I figured like there's 150 comics that month that they do have that. So
mm,
let's do something fun with the character. It also humanizes Power Girl,
yes.
right? She has a talk with him like a mother at one point. She says, you can't, she's talking to him. She has to go out of her safe place to talk directly to this kid. And I thought those are the kind of moments that are key to character development. We had it in Harley. Harley would talk to homeless people
Mm-hmm.
once in a while. She'd have these conversations with them.
Mm,
And she'd have like and she would, Harley was a person, if it's sparkly, she goes and looks at it. If anything shiny, she's like a kid. But she would have these conversations that were like, she's a really deep person,
mm-hmm.
but she chooses to turn on this switch to be Harley because it's easier for her to deal with everything. And
Okay.
we don't beat you over the head with that, but you understand it whenever something heavy happens, you see the weight on that character. And I thought that's what also Power Girl humanized Power Girl really quick to people who
Mm.
never, people just hated, some people hated the character. Oh, it's just TNA.
No.
And I was just like, no, no, read the book. You might be surprised that you start caring for her
Yeah.
after a while.
So as you've mentioned it, uh, obviously you did Jonah Hex as well.
Yes.
What are your memories of working on this book? Because obviously, as we said at the start of this, you love westerns.
Yeah, we Justin Gray and I pitched. We gave DC Comics a pitch for Jonah Hex. It was maybe 2 years before this first issue came out, and
Hmm.
they said we're holding that title for Brian Azzarello
Okay.
because he wants to write Jonah Hex. And I'm like, okay, for how long though? I mean, is he going to do it? Or anyway, one day Brian walks into Vertigo with Loveless and says, I'm writing a Western. So Dan calls me up. Dan Deal calls me up. He goes, hey, I remember you had a pitch for Jonah Hex. Are you guys still interested? And I'm like, absolutely. And he goes, can I have the pitch? And I said, yes, it's in your email. I just sent it to him as he was talking to me because I had it right on my computer. I said, it's in your email. So we got the book, and we talked to Dan and editorial, and we said, we have an idea for the book. And they said, what's that? And I said, done in one story. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, I said, we can have themes that are continued, but we want to get a lot of different artists to work on the book. I don't want it to ever be late, but I know I can recruit artists for this book if I tell them it's only done in one story, 22 pages.
Mm.
Because a lot of artists love Jonah Hex. They just don't want to draw the series. They want to draw one issue.
Mm.
Um, and they okayed it. And we got 70 issues out. I think we had a total of around 45 different artists, right? I mean, we had repeats, like Jordy Bernay did like 10.
Hmm.
Um, but we had, Dan said he gave us like those Marvel awards that Stan Lee used to give away that were nothing but the envelope.
Yeah.
We got one of those for DC, an invisible award. He said it's one of his only books that came out 70 weeks in a row, that came out the first week of the week of the month for
Wow.
70 in a row, never late.
Hmm.
Because literally our editor kind of handed over the book to me and said, you go get the teams, you get to put the people together. And every convention I went, I would go up to guys and I'd say, hey, you have any interest in Jonah Hex, Brian Stelfreeze? Hey, Phil Noto, you want to do a couple of issues of Jonah Hex? And once I had the artist, Justin and I would write the story for the artist. So they would tell us what. Only very rare occasions. I had a cover drawn by Brian Boland. Drew a cover, just
Mm.
randomly did a cover, and it had Jonah Hex shaving and a nun with a shotgun behind him. And his note on it was like, "Go ahead, make up a story around this." And we did. We wrote a whole story around that. It was a really fun book to do. We tested the boundaries with the first issue, because in the first issue, a kid gets rabies,
Oh.
and Jonah Hex smothers him with a pillow and kills him.
Oh.
And when we handed it in, Dan Dio calls me. He goes, "Seriously, the first issue, he's smothering a kid with a pillow?" And and we said, "Listen," he said, "this is going to be a rough book. You know, it's going to be true to the old West." And I said, "It's a mercy kill,
Yeah.
because the kid's kid's going to be in bad shape anytime soon."
Yeah.
And Dan just shook his head. He goes, "Yeah, you know what you're doing. All right, well, just man, that's just heavy shit." And I'm just like, I said, "It's the first issue. We want people to come back for number 2, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it went from there, and we got lucky. I mean, I remember, God, I remember I was, we had Darwin Cook for 3 issues. Three.
Mm.
I mean, Darwin. We wrote one about Canadian Mounties, and for Darwin, and he killed it. And then we did.
Mm.
He was over my house when we wrote the outline for the 50th issue, and he just took it and he says, "I'm drawing this book."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Well, let me clear it." And he goes, "I don't care. I'm drawing it. You tell the editors I'm drawing this 50th issue." Like, we had guys, Dick Giordano, who was sick at the time. His wife called and asked us. He said he always wanted to draw a Jonah Hex issue, so he wrote a script within a week and got it to him, and he did a great job. Like, there's a lot of stories with those 70 issues. Like, if they ever do like an omnibus, I can literally write a story for every issue, because there was a conversation with every artist. And Jordi Bernay, I remember I went to Barcelona and met with Jordi,
Mm-hmm.
and he told me, he says, "Put a little more humor in the stories. I like humor in my westerns." So I think that the flex on that was we did an issue with a bunch of nuns beating Jonah Hex with sticks, and he wrote back, he's like, "Perfect, perfect." you know. But it was an interesting run, because the book never sold that much, but it sold steady.
Mm-hmm.
It almost got canceled 4 times. Dan DiDio made sure it wasn't. They called us in to Warner Brothers. They said, "We're going to make a movie based on the book." And they proudly, the guy who's not there anymore, proudly told me, "You and Justin will have nothing to do with it." They proudly told us. And I said, "Well," I said, "You want to hire us for consultants?" I said, "We kind of know the character." I said, "I've done screenwriting work." I said, "Go look at my IMDb." And it's like, "Nope." So we removed ourselves from that film, and it shows.
Yeah,
You know.
I have seen it, and
Oh, yeah.
um,
Yeah.
trying to think what to say
Less said
about
the
it.
better. It's terrible.
Yeah, well,
It's
I yeah.
not,
The
and
only
nothing against Josh. Josh was
no, no.
great. Josh was
The
great.
the standout scene in that book for me is when he revives Jeb to ask where his dad is. I enjoyed that scene,
Right.
but I know that Josh and apparently Megan Fox don't talk very kindly of it as well. So, yeah,
No, well, we went on set because one of the producers was an old friend of mine, so we visited the set. But they gave me the screenplay, and Justin and I gave them notes back. We said, "That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work." The protagonist, the third act is all over the place. We gave them notes. They didn't want to hear them,
mm,
and then we met with Josh. We had lunch with Josh Brolin and John Malkovich, and I met Diane Lane, who was on the set.
mm,
Justin and I got to talk to Diane Lane. She wasn't in the movie, but she was on the set for Josh. Um, but they forgot that he was a bounty hunter
mm,
and a tracker. Did he have to revive someone from the dead to find out where he went? No,
yeah, yeah,
he's a tracker. Like, they added all this supernatural stuff because they thought that's you can't. He said the guy, the DC person, the Warner Brothers person, said
mm,
you can't do a straight Western because nobody will go see it. And by the way, if you remember, 2 weeks later, True Grit came out. It was a #1 movie for
yes,
four
yeah, I
for
remember
four
that.
weeks, right? So
Mm,
right out the window with that one.
mm,
The problem with the movie was the movie bombed.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all our trade books were returned from every Barnes and Noble in the United States. They
Ah,
sent them all back.
that's
So
terrible.
that's why you see there are no reprints of our Jonah Hex run.
That's a
There's
shame.
nothing. The only thing that's coming out in October is an omnibus of the All Star Western books.
Okay.
But the original 70 issues have never been recollected, which is a shame because I was
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
hoping it would be one of these oh, where is it? They do the
Yeah,
mini
yeah, I know what you mean.
collections.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it would make like a nice 2 or 3 issue set.
Yeah, because
You know.
I mean, going back to that scene we revived Jeb, I always liked it where Jeb says to him, "I've been watching you two for a long time. It's kind of hard to tell who's who now." But now you've told me that story, I'm like, oh, yeah,
Well, look, we had nothing to do with it. They
mm,
didn't put our names on the movie, which is thank you so much for that.
yeah,
I was really relieved about that.
mm,
But I saw Josh Brolin again, and he's a great guy. I mean, he
yeah,
was great. It had a great cast. They just didn't know what to do. Again, it's one of those things that it did everything wrong, and nobody's going to touch the property for a while. Although
yeah,
I do think you have HBO, you can just make a Jonah Hex series.
mm-hmm,
Just literally take the single issues we did and just shoot them.
mm,
It's what could be cheaper. I mean, it's no giant special effects. It's a straight western.
mm,
You need a horse in a town and a guy with a gun. I mean,
yeah.
it's pretty basic, but whatever.
All right, so we're almost at the end now, but paper films.
Yes.
Uh, how did this all come about? Because me personally, I love independent work nowadays. I like to think that's where some of the magic happens.
Yes.
Uh, talk to me about the genesis of this. And
So so in the United States, when you do a lot of work, you want to incorporate. You
mhm,
want to have a company just in case you get sued. They can't sue you; they sue the company.
okay,
So anyway, I incorporated, and then I said, well, let's put out some books under a label, and Paper Films was the label we decided to do, and that's when I started doing Kickstarters. So a lot of these books were Kickstarters.
hmm,
Um, a lot of these properties were ones like GI Zombie and stuff um, that we got the rights back from DC, so we own again. But it's just basically a place where me and Justin and Patrick and Amanda can kind of put out our own books.
mm,
None of these are big print runs. They're just, whatever Kickstarter. Some of them are older characters like Jane and Ash
yeah, I see them.
and the Pro. Um, but it's just our own little company. We put out maybe like 2, 3 books a year. Like right now, I currently have Deep Sea is in Kickstarter.
Yep.
So that's one like you can get on now and buy it.
Hmm.
Only available through the Kickstarter. Yeah, Popkill was one we did years ago,
Yeah.
and then Mad Cave approached us to do it as a series, and we told them we'd be interested, but you can't have any of the covers we did on the Kickstarters. So they couldn't. I said I wanted to keep my Kickstarter people very
Yeah. Yeah.
taken care of.
By
We
the way,
never
I love
expected.
this.
Yeah, it's a fun book, and we never expected the reception for that book to be as big as it was. Like we just, I mean, if you look at the story, it's insane.
Oh, I
Okay,
loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's,
yeah,
it's it's the part with the fact that you've got the two headquarters opposite each other, and the
yeah,
two brothers are essentially going that out the window to each other. I
yeah.
thought it was hilarious.
That was very Dave Johnson. Dave and I wrote that giggling, and Dave brought me the idea, and he had all these crazy ideas, and I said, okay. I said, but why do we care? It's always my question, right? Why do
Yeah.
we care? And I said, well, let's create a romance, so we're gonna take this guy out of his safe place and we're gonna take her out of her safe place
Hmm.
and mess with them. It is a funny book. If you get past
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's incredibly cruel in places and it's funny and it's twisted. But like I said, we wrote that and we just thought, I don't know who's gonna buy this, but sometimes as creators you just gotta experiment and everyone's like, well, what does it fit, what's the genre? And I'm like, James Bond soda company competitors, Japan, I don't know, it's romance, got some romance in it. It was such a weird funny pitch.
Yeah.
But when Man Cave put out number one, it did over 50,000 copies, and That's like for mainstream comics, that's a big number, you know.
Mm.
Now we know the sexy covers helped, but realistically, if the story wasn't good, nobody would care, right? So at the end of the day, it's nice to have all these cool covers, but we actually found the audience actually read the comic instead of
Yeah.
just buying the covers. People actually read it and cared about the characters, and the trade book did very well, and it's still out now, so we're happy about that. I have a
Yeah.
couple. I give them to my friends come over the house. They take one all the time.
Brilliant. So to the main event, uh, Deep Sea.
Yeah,
Now I've backed this book
thank you.
because I obviously say I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and I grew up with films like The Abyss, Deep Star Six, Leviathan, uh, and they were inspirations for me to write a sci-fi underwater horror book of my own.
And see,
Um,
what is this called? Escape from.
this is called Escape from Crescendo Station One. It
Nice.
it's not my best-selling book, but it is my favorite. And
Yeah,
whenever I because
it's amazing.
I love underwater sci-fi, and with Deep Star Six in particular, I love underwater sci-fi horror.
I
And
remember that. I
yeah,
remember that. This is a
and
fun movie.
and when I saw this, I went, "That is right up my alley." But as I discovered, because you talked about this earlier in the week on the stream you did with the Comic School channel,
Yes, with Buddy
um,
Scalera. Yeah.
yeah, this story has been out before, hasn't it? This was one you got the rights back to.
So 24 pages of it
Mm.
were published in Dark Horse Presents. So the
Hmm.
3 chapters, and then for some reason, I think it was a money grab because we didn't get a dime from it. They put the 3 chapters into one book at Dark Horse, and we're like, why would you do that? It's not a complete story. But when they own stuff, we have no choice. They just do stuff, right?
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, I managed to get all the rights back, and I talked to Tony Akins and Paul Bounce. I said, listen, I said, we want to finish this story because it's only a half of the story. It's the setup. It's not the
Yeah.
delivery. And this is part the story is like basically it takes place in the early 60s.
Yeah.
And there's a group like I call them my challenges of the unknown, but these deep sea divers created this vessel that can go deeper than any other vessel has ever gone. And of course, Mariana's Trench is the place to go, right?
Yeah.
Since it's higher than the Mount Everest, it's deeper than Mount Everest,
Hmm.
and no one's ever been down there. And one of our main characters, one of the 5 that are going on the expedition, gets injured right before the expedition. They can't go on it. The wound would not deal with the pressure, and he has to stay back. And his girlfriend goes on it, so they're separately. Something happens down there. They can't get the ship back. They're lost. They're gone. The
Mm.
ship is down there. It breaks and it goes deeper, never to be heard from again. Now we go 40 years later, right? 40 plus years later, we revisit the guy that was left behind. And he's retired. He's an older gentleman and he's retired and he's living in Hawaii and he's living out his life. And they sent a chopper, they sent a girl to get him. They said, listen, we found the ship. We got the ship back. And he's like, oh my God, that's insane. Like, do we know what happened? They're like, well, we can't tell you. We have to come. We need you to look at it and give us your professional opinions on it. And he gets to this giant carrier in the ocean, and there it is, and it's intact. And he's like, did they find the bodies, or where is everybody? And then they tell him, well, you're gonna have to come with us. And the story kicks in because the reveal, I don't know if I want to give too much, but let's just say everyone who was in the ship, it's the next day for them.
Ooh.
And everyone outside the ship, it's 40 years later.
Yeah.
And it goes from there.
Well, I'm excited for this because I backed the mystery cover.
Oh yeah, the Amanda one.
Yes, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
keen to see that. And I backed the perk where you've both signed it. But one thing I also did because you talked about this on the stream, I it's a fault of mine that I tend to just sort of browse past the add-ons and not properly check them out.
Right.
And you mentioned that you've done a new cover for Power Girl 1.
Yeah, we
And
did it. We paid for DC a fortune. I mean, I'm hoping we get our money back one day. But we
hmm,
paid DC a fortune to reprint. They don't usually let people do that. We reprinted #1, but Amanda did a wraparound
yeah,
cover, like with a white space, and the only place you can get it from is us. Like when we
hmm,
bring in the conventions, it's the first thing we sell out of right away because
I
people are
bet,
like,
I bet.
yeah.
But I added that to my backing. It's the first time I've ever sort of really done that with add-ons because I don't tend to. But I added the version that's not signed because I hope that one day you guys cross the water and come here because
We
I will bring that with me. Uh,
so we have one convention in I want to say it's okay. It's it's the end of May, May 23rd, and it's all the way north and west of you. It's I'm trying to think where it is. My brain says Netherlands, but it's not. It's actually more I'm trying to remember. Let me just see where if I wrote it down. Because it was something we had to cancel last year.
okay.
Um I'll let you know where it is. It's because
Yeah,
they didn't
sure.
announce it yet.
But
But we don't say no to a UK show. We just don't get invited because I think the plane
uh,
fare is expensive or something.
um,
Um, we're not like high maintenance and we're not asking for a fee. But I think the plane rides or whatever. We did a London show a couple of years ago and it was great. And it was me. It was me and Amanda, Frank Miller, John Rita Jr.,
mhm,
Brian Azzarello, and Tim said, I think Tim was with us at the time when Tim was alive.
mm,
Yeah. And it was fantastic. And as Frank Miller said to me, which I love him for it, he goes, Your line is like bigger than my line. And I'm just like, and I'm like, I said, well, two things, Frank. I said, one, we're cheaper. And I
no,
said, and two, we've never did a signing here. So
mm,
this is like because people were bringing over books like this. They were like, oh my
yeah,
God, I had like so we hope to be invited because we will go if it's anything in the UK. We love to go because we
yeah.
just we have a great time there. And then we'll go castle hunting and all that
Mm.
kind of stuff,
Oh,
over there.
absolutely. But obviously, at the time of this stream, there's 19 days to go. Uh,
Yes.
in dollar terms, your goal was 10,000. You've taken
Yeah.
16,000 and broke your first stretch goal. So the book's going to be upgraded in paper quality.
Yeah. So what I do is, so my book, I can get the book regularly printed, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the stretch goal, I can do two things. I can do what they call a satin finish on the paper,
Yes.
and then what I do is we cut my not the printer, but John J. Hill, the designer. He cuts a separate layer, and we spot varnish certain elements of the cover. So not only is the other place like a velvet feel, but it's raised in parts.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually do the logo, and then if it's like that cover, we'll do the girl and the tentacles only spot varnish.
Okay.
So the black looks even deeper because it's that velvet black,
Yeah.
and then the spot varnish stuff looks like it's 3D almost.
Mm-hmm.
But we also up the paper stock, and like anytime we do a stretch goal, I tell my printer, he knows. I say, all right, I want to one up everything, and he's like, okay, but you have to get me the spot varnish cuts, and I'm like, I'll get you that, but I figure if you're gonna pay that much for a comic, it should feel like it's worth that much. Somebody gave me a nice quote. They said, "When I get your books, I I feel like I have to keep them separate from my other comics because they're specials. Like they're thick, the paper quality." And I was like, "Yeah." And I said, "It's not just a square bound thing that you throw around. I think I have well, that's a TNA one, but yeah, let me see. That's one of them. It's one of my older Kickstarters. And I don't know if you'll see it. I'll reflect. You see where the
Yes. Yes,
girls
I can see
reflect?
it. Yeah.
You see the varnish on it?
Yeah, I can see that.
And then, like, if you look at the back cover, the blacks are insanely black on it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's. Let me do that.
Yeah.
So much so I could do subtle kind of artwork with that. But also the printing on the books. It just again, this is
Yeah.
It's not flimsy. I can't, and even the interior paper is thick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not awkward thick because there's a folding. I'm a tactile person, so things have to fold the right way. So inside it still feels like, but it's put it this way: in Marvel and DC books, this puts it to shame.
Mm.
And you see the spot varnish in the Panther's eyes, I think,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yes, I can see that.
And when you have it in front of you, though, it's hard to see. Sorry, it's hard to see there,
Yeah.
but it's just the colors are just so rich. And we do
Mm.
the spot varnish on the logo too, which is always fun for them to cut out.
Mm.
And the only issue we have is we have to check with the printer because of the printing process. Once in a while they get a scratch, and he just goes back and reprints me more. He's used to it. But color wise, printing wise, it's just bigger than life. It just sits there, and this has a finish, so they call it a satin finish.
Yes.
It's almost like a when you touch it, you again, we're tactile people, comic people. You feel like I shouldn't just throw this in the pile with the other books. That this is like a
Mm.
special thing. The other thing about the Kickstarter is, like you ordered the Amanda cover, so by the time it's done, there might only be 100 of those.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting a 1 in 100 book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I try to tell people. I'm like, when you do the Kickstarter, I know Marvel and DC does these alternate covers and it says 1 out of 100 or 200.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sure. When you're getting 50,000 ordered, 1 out of 100 is a lot of books. These are literally only what you see on the Kickstarter. I only print 10% more because I have to allow for postage screw ups and
Yeah.
things like that. So we make instant collectibles with this, as I
Yeah, I
like to
bet.
say. If you're a collector, now I'm a reader, so I'm less of a collector. I'm a reader, but boy, my friends are all collectors. They all buy,
Oh
you
yeah.
can, you
I'm
know,
I'm I'm not as much as a collector as I used to be. I scaled things back in recent years,
yeah.
but my
Well, children, man, children, you don't have the money for that.
no, but
You know.
my prized possession is actually right here.
Let me see. Let me see.
Because I only have one of these CGC comics, but obviously Skybound relaunched Transformers
Yes.
recently, and I have get the dust off it. That's terrible. I have the variant of issue 1, and it's signed by Peter Cullen, who's the voice of Optimus Prime.
Right, and it's 9.8 too, and
Yeah,
it looks like a special edition
yeah,
signature series.
it's one of the variant covers, and
That's so cool.
yeah, I grew up a Transformers nerd, so this is one of mine.
I
But
I have I have CGC comics. Let me show you one of mine.
oh, go
We're
on
gonna show off our comics. How about that? What could be more goofy? Hang on. It's funny because I opened the drawer and beer bottles came out. That's pretty funny. I'm so proud of that. So I did a signing at CGC,
Mm-hmm.
and then we did one like a year, like 6 months later. And this is ridiculous. It's not a comic book, okay?
Okay.
But they gave me a 10.0 signed by all the people at CGC thanking us for doing the
Oh,
signing.
that's brilliant. That's
So,
brilliant.
and they drew little pictures on
Yeah,
it, and
yeah,
thank you. And some people use different kind of market, but I thought it was the sweetest thing. Like I was like, I'm like, oh, I got a 10.0 of what is this again? And they signed by the CGC staff in July 10th, 2020.
yeah.
It's like COVID time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
which is the
brilliant.
only thing safe. It probably has COVID inside it. Now, is it worth anything? No, but
Yeah.
it's wonderful for me that they
Mm.
all did that. That's really sweet.
So, what's obviously next for you? Because I know you've got Harley Quinn and Elvira. It's due out soon, and my
It's October
understanding of
1st.
and
Yeah.
my understanding of that is it's almost sold 100,000 copies.
Yeah, it did 91,000.
Yeah,
Trust me, that, and it's fun. If you look at it, it's a fun book.
yeah. I've read this is the first Ashcan I've owned in years, and I mean literally years. And
You got that from your retailer friend?
yes, I did,
Yes.
because
Okay.
I went there. I think it was last Saturday, and I was about to leave when I sort of did it. I said, I was pointing to him. He said, "Yeah, it's Ashcan." I said, "I want it," and it was. it was a giggle. It was a fun little read. So I thought, yeah, I'm definitely getting number one. But you've got this coming out, the Blue Falcon,
Yeah,
and
I have that right here. Yeah,
and
yeah.
also you've oh sweet, and also you've returned to the Punisher.
I have two Punisher books. So I have one in October 8th, and that's with Dan Panosian, and
Yes.
that's a Marvel Knights, the World to Come, part of that
Mm-hmm.
thing that Joe and Chris Priest started. This is a standalone 4 issue story. Dan Panosian penciled, inked it, and colored it.
Wow.
So he did everything on. It's gorgeous. It's hardcore Punisher.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Punisher like 10 years from now. He's not. He's like a little older.
Yeah.
Um, and he how do I explain this without giving away too much? He gets himself in a bad spot, and mentally and physically, and a lot of it takes place in Mexico.
So old man Punisher.
It's he's not that old in it. If I was gonna do Old Man Punisher, he would be literally like Clint Eastwood in that movie where he's like, "Get off my lawn with the
Gran
gun."
Torino.
Like, yeah, I would make him much older. This is just like him a little older.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, um, it's 4 issues. It's beautiful. I
I'm
mean,
looking forward to it.
the book looks like no other book out there. And then the next month I have a 5 issue series, and you'll appreciate this. Okay, it's I don't know if they announced the artist yet or not, but um, it is it's 5 issues. It takes place in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
We open the first issue in the Marvel Knight story where Punisher and Daredevil fight. Remember from Welcome Back, Frank? And you remember that thing ends with him punching and knocking out Daredevil,
Mm-hmm.
right? Our story opens with Daredevil waking up, where he is when he wakes up. So that's our first issue. It opens up where he wakes up, and Punisher has something to do with his placement of where he put the Daredevil.
Okay.
And the second issue covers when Frank Castle's in the Central Park Zoo and he fights all those guys, and then Maganucci gets mauled by bears.
Yeah.
And where Frank is leaving Central Park Zoo and he's shot in the shoulder and he's cut here. In the Welcome Back, Frank, we cut to later where we have a guy. This is a week later where a guy says, "I saw the Punisher. He was going to this house." And Maganucci's like, "Go get him." I cover the story between him leaving the zoo and getting home. What happens there?
Okay.
So I'm writing these 5 issues, and it's intertwined with Welcome Back, Frank. And I'm telling you, I'm breaking it down the minutes and days, and it all makes sense. And basically, it comes to a head. The story is about after Maganucci's dead,
Okay.
and the Punisher and Daredevil are having a come to Jesus moment where again Daredevil's like, my method, people are able to redeem themselves and have a second life, and Frank's like, yes, but you people that are redeeming yourselves don't always redeem themselves, and they
Mm.
cause more pain. My method is we never have to deal with them again, and I'm treating it like Heat, like the movie Heat.
Oh, I love that movie.
Okay, because I have a point where Frank and Daredevil sit down and have a sit down,
Ah.
and because Punisher doesn't know Matt Murdock's Daredevil at this time, has
Mm-hmm.
no idea, right? But everybody knows Punisher's Frank Castle.
Yeah.
Okay, I have Misty Knight is involved in this because Misty Knight is sort of a catalyst to get them together to talk because she's had enough of their shit, and so it's 5 issues of me going back to that time. And they really should label the Book of Marvel Knights label, but I'm not giving them any. I'm just happy to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really about them talking about their process and how theirs works and the other guy's doesn't. And
Okay.
Punisher makes a really good case in the first issue of why Daredevil's way doesn't work, the law doesn't work, and you know, and the problem with Matt is Matt does see why he thinks that, but Matt's the Boy Scout. Matt's like anybody can be reformed, anybody can have a new life, but some people don't. And so that's kind of, so I'm doing that, and I can't talk about the other two things I'm doing, and that's not till the end of the year.
No, fair
But
enough.
that's enough. I mean, I'm like,
No,
you know,
I look forward to it because, like I said, I'm definitely going to pick up Harley Quinn and Elvira.
yeah. The
And
Punisher, Dan Panosian's Punisher book. Wait till you see it. I mean, that's all I gotta
oh,
say. It,
trust me, I'm
it
looking forward to it.
if you like the way he's been drawing lately, and he's gotten much better than he used to be, this book he kind of, and it was a really weird thing I'm gonna say. Um, his artwork has a Mort Drugger feel to it, and a Jack Davis feel to it,
Okay.
but so much more muscle and diesel than those
Mm.
guys. Um, it's got a bounce and a life to it. Frankie draws has got this. He looks like a psychopath. I mean, the way he draws him, it looks like he's nuts. And I love that about the Punisher, because the Punisher is a crazy character. He's not normal. The guy's
No.
everything about him is like a one note thing,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever you take him out of that note, that's when he starts having problems.
Mm.
Like, Frank Castle's not a guy that sits down and watches the sunset and ponders his life, because the minute he ponders his life, he's questioning everything he's ever done.
Yeah.
And we don't go there with the Punisher. This is Punisher on adrenaline, like
Okay.
not stopping. So yeah, should be fun. We'll see.
All right. So to finish off these streams, I always like to do my little tribute to Inside the Actors Studio, which was a
Okay.
series I adore to this day, and it's such a shame that James Lipton's no longer with us. But
Yeah.
I always,
How dare he?
I always enjoyed the final Pivo questionnaire,
Go
and I do it as a tribute. So, Jimmy, what is your favourite word?
ahead. It might be asshole. I use it in so many different ways. Like, oh, that guy's such an asshole. Quit acting like an asshole. Or Amanda will do something, and I'll just under my breath go asshole, and she'll start laughing because she thinks it's hysterical. That was the first word that came to mind. So that's usually the one I'm pretty much, I didn't even think about that. But asshole is a useful word. Or I tell people, hey, listen, you're being a bit of an asshole right now. So just, back off a little bit. Or
Okay.
don't be that asshole.
Yeah.
It can be used, Stan Lee has this whole diatribe about using the F word. And I always go, yeah, that's common, especially New Yorkers, they use that.
Yeah.
But I think asshole is kind of funny because you can use it. You can be kind of sweet about it too.
Mm.
Man, you're such an asshole. I love you, but you could be such an asshole. And, people really don't get really mad at that too much.
Mm.
Yeah. So asshole is it, and I know whatever PG rating we had just went out the window.
Don't
with that
worry
word.
about it.
Yeah.
So, what is your least favorite word?
Maybe the C word for women. It's
Yeah.
there's just nothing about it. I think twat is a much better word. Like, it
Yeah.
could mean 45 different things.
Mm-hmm.
But the C word, it's a little offensive. Although I don't give that much power to any words, because I feel like it's the person saying them and how they're saying it, less the word. Let me see what other word. My wife, she hates the word. Well, she doesn't. She thinks it's funny, the word moist. I know a lot of English women.
My wife absolutely hates that word with a passion.
Right. I was going to say a lot of English women don't like the word moist, and
No.
I don't know why that is. Something happened to them at point, or
I don't know.
I think some really lecherous guy used it as the expression for a woman or something. Oh, she's quite moist. So your wife will hate this, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I think the C word for women, I just think that's kind of like, and it's funny, right? Because I have my English friends come here and they use that word all day long,
Yeah.
and and they use the word fag, which always means something different here.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, can you spare a fag?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have a bunch of fags in my closet, and I'm gonna give you my spare fag." What are you talking about? He's like, "No, cigarette, mate." I'm like, "Oh, cigarette, okay."
I'll tell you this quick story before I move on. I read an Australian book by an Australian author, and the C word was just used non-stop. And I speak to a lot of Australian friends of mine online, and I said, the amount of C word this guy said in his book, and all the Australians who use that word quite promptly over there are going, and?
Right. So the power of words, are basically, I mean, how they're used, right?
Yes.
And in context of how they're used. The word by itself doesn't really do anything. It's just,
No, no.
I remember people used to use the word flick all the time in comics because the F and the L would line up and it looks like you said
Yeah,
flick,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Clint was the other one, the name
Yeah.
Clint. And one guy did a comic called Flick and Clint, which I thought was pretty funny. I'm like, it's a one-note comic, but um,
Oh God.
but I think the words have the power, depending,
Yeah.
the way they used, and politics. They use words. They throw around words all the
Oh
time. Use
yeah,
them as
absolutely.
they weaponize things that shouldn't even be weaponized.
Mm.
But yeah, but I think asshole is pretty good.
So what turns you on?
Gets me excited about like life and shit like
Yeah,
that.
anything like that.
Traveling.
Mm.
When Amanda and I are traveling, we are the people that see a sign that says a volcano 7 miles out. We go, let's go to the volcano. Or ice caves 3 miles. Let's go to the ice caves. What's an ice cave? I don't know. Let's go.
Mm.
We are explorers, Amanda and I. When we
Wow.
travel, we tend to go not to the popular places. We tend to ride on the side roads, and we're open for stuff. That I really enjoy that, and I am a huge fan of music. I am
Mm.
not musically talented, but I love music. I don't know if I can live without music. That's how
Okay.
much I like music.
What turns you off?
Rude people, nasty people, uh, people who are willingly stupid, who
Mm.
choose to be stupid. And there's like that out of context. It's weird, but if you think about it,
No.
people choose to ignore things because they willingly want to be stupid. Um, I think mean people, who don't respect other people's space and time and face and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
There's and My number one thing is greed. I don't like greed.
Mm.
Um, any kind of greed, I think, is bad. I think it leads to everything else. The downfall of society is greed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's one of the most despicable things in a person when you meet them,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think greed is like number one, man. I mean,
Okay.
take greed out of, let's say, politics, and what do you have? You have people trying to help people,
Mm.
right? Instead of helping themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, greed is number one.
What is your favorite curse word?
I was thinking cock juggling thunder cunt was one of them, but I'm maybe shithead.
Oh wow! I've never heard
Yeah.
that before.
What's that?
The first
Cock,
one, yeah.
cock juggling thunder cunt?
Yeah, I've
I,
never heard
I
that.
think it was from a Blade movie or something. I don't know. It was
Oh,
one of those movies.
oh God. What sound? What sound or noise do you like?
What sound?
Yes.
Um, I don't like the fingers on a chalkboard.
This is what
That
one you
scratch.
like.
Oh, which one do I like?
Yes.
Amanda purring is my favorite, but
Okay.
I I guess that would be, yeah. Yeah, that would be my favorite. Sure.
What sound or noise do you hate? I think you just said that.
Yeah, the chalkboard, like
Yeah.
anything like that, I don't like. Yeah.
What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
Screenwriting. I would like to do that. Like I've done some, but I'd love to be able to be. I'd love to be hired to write a feature film. Like
Okay.
literally just hired to say, "Here's the thing, go for it." That would be fun.
And what profession other than yours would you absolutely not like to attempt?
My brain went right to something, and I'm like, the guy who cleans out the toilets and the any kind of shit, like job with shit
Yeah.
involved. I think, but I would say probably the that or even worse would be a person that like is in an ambulance, like an amp drives treats people in an ambulance. Probably would not like it.
Mm.
That has to deal with like car crashes and people are mangled, and I think I don't know how those people do that job, and more power to them, man. Holy shit. But the idea of seeing people twisted up in metal and still
Mm.
breathing, it's just horror show for me. That's
Yeah,
horror
yeah.
stuff. I don't think I could do it. I think I'd rather clean a toilet any day of the
Fair
week.
enough.
Yeah.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I would like him to point out a joke he liked that I told. That would be a fun thing, like because I have a couple of jokes where he's involved in them, and
Hmm.
I'm hoping he likes them. um, I think other than that, I think I would like him uh to thank me for being so kind,
I like
to
it.
making sure I had a life of kindness. Like I would like a little thank you from him. I don't know why, but I would like to be acknowledged that because I do try my best to be kind to everyone. And it's sometimes it's not easy, right? People make it hard for you. I
Hmm.
kind of I have to step out of myself and say, all right, maybe they're going through stuff. Empathy is a very big thing for me.
No, of course.
Um, but I think maybe no, it's just like good job, high five, and then show me where Amanda is. If she's there first. If
Yeah,
not, show me where I can sit and wait for her would be the thing I'd want to know.
I
You
like
know?
it.
Yeah.
All right, so for all those watching, Deep Sea graphic novel is still on Kickstarter for
Yes.
another 19 days. I strongly suggest you check it out. Uh, Jimmy, I can't thank you enough for the time you've given me today.
Oh,
Uh,
my pleasure,
I look
Justin.
forward to Deep Sea and, of course, The Punisher and, of course, Harley Quinn and Elvira.
Yeah.
This has been an absolute treat for me, and good luck with everything you do going forward. And
Thanks, and
again,
hopefully I'll see you when I'm in the UK. As we'll go
oh,
grab a pint.
absolutely, I certainly look forward to it. But
Yeah, man.
thank you very much for this. This has been wonderful.
My pleasure,
So
buddy.